citizens of Nigeria, it is with full gratitude to God that today we celebrate Nigeria's 61st independence anniversary. For 1st of October 1960 to happen, all hands were on deck. East, West, North all came together to celebrate freedom. Today should not only serve as a reminder of the day the British handed over the reins of power to Nigerians, but also unified Nigerians from all ethnic groups, religions, and regions. Today, despite the challenges we face, most Nigerians still maintain the spirit of 1st October. That positive outlook and determination to make Nigeria a peaceful and prosperous nation. It is due to this collective attitude that Nigeria definitely continues to remain a united and indivisible nation. Fellow Nigerians, the first 18 months have been some of the most difficult periods in the history of Nigeria. Since the Civil War, I doubt whether we have seen a period of more heightened challenges than what we have witnessed in this period. Our original priorities for 2020 were to continue stabilizing our economy following the deep recession while restoring peace in areas confronted with security challenges. But the COVID-19 pandemic and its devastating impact on all nations meant we needed to shift gears and re-strategize. Nigerians came together as one to fight against COVID-19. It is this attitude, and by the special grace of God, we continue to survive the pandemic as a nation and indeed provide leadership and example at regional and international levels. The doomsday scenario predicted for our country never came. Even as the Delta variant continues to spread, we have built the capacity we need to respond now and into the future. I will therefore appeal to Nigerians not to take COVID lightly. Adhere to public health and social measures. Put your mask on and get vaccinated. We can control this pandemic, but it requires effort on everybody's part. The investments we made in response to COVID-19 will also serve our country to tackle any future disease outbreaks or pandemics. Despite the global inequity in access to vaccines, the government of Nigeria has continued to explore all available options to ensure Nigerians have free access to safe and effective vaccines. Some 5 million vaccine doses have been administered to Nigerians through efforts led by the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, and we will continue to explore options for purchase or acquisition of vaccines, such as through COVAX and the African Vaccine Acquisition Trust. I will take this opportunity to remind the global community that the current state of access to COVID-19 vaccines is unacceptable. We cannot afford a situation where a handful of countries keep the global vaccine supply to themselves at the expense of other nations. We must act now to accelerate equitable distribution of COVID-19 vaccines. This is the message I conveyed to the international community in New York last week. As we push to source vaccine for our immediate needs, we shall invest more to support our pharmaceutical and research agencies to come up with ideas for locally developed vaccines. Should another pandemic arise in the future, our question is simple. Will Nigeria be ready? Accordingly, I have directed the Ministries of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Health, Education, Science and Technology to work with Nigerian and international pharmaceutical companies and research organizations to enhance Nigeria's domestic pharmaceutical capacity. Already, the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority is raising a $200 million United States dollars fund for this initiative that will complement the Central Bank of Nigeria's ongoing 85 billion naira healthcare sector research and development intervention scheme to support local researchers in the development of vaccines and drugs to combat communicable and non-communicable diseases, including COVID-19. Fellow Nigerians, this is just the beginning. Similarly, on our approach to food security, I am proud to announce Nigeria has commenced its journey to pharmaceutical independence. This journey, which will take years to achieve, but will ultimately result in Nigerian-based companies developing the active pharmaceutical substances and the competence needed for us to make our own drugs and vaccines. Fellow Nigerians, as our economy continues to open after COVID-19 related lockdowns, we have also seen the resurgence of insecurity in certain parts of the country. In the last 4 months, the gallant men and women of the military and security agencies have made tremendous progress in addressing these new security challenges. We are taking the fight to our enemies from all angles, and we are winning. Earlier this year, I launched the Integrated National Security and Waterways Protection Infrastructure, the Deep Blue Project, which is designed to secure Nigerian waters up to the Gulf of Guinea. I am happy to inform Nigerians that we have taken delivery of key assets for this project, and very soon its impact will be felt. In the northeast region alone, over 8,000 Boko Haram terrorists have surrendered. To support our surge approach to fighting banditry, the Nigerian Armed Forces have recruited over 17,000 personnel across all ranks. Furthermore, I have also approved for the Nigerian Police Force to recruit 10,000 police officers annually over the next 6 years. I am also pleased to note that most of the Air Force platforms we acquired over the past 3 years have started to arrive in Nigeria. These will positively impact on security operation in all parts of the country. In line with Section 14, subsection 2B of the 1999 Constitution as amended, the security and welfare of Nigerians continue to be the prime focus on which programs and projects of our government revolves. Therefore, as a government, we are ready to arrest and prosecute all persons inciting violence through words or action. Our resolve for a peaceful, united, and one Nigeria remains resolute and unwavering. That said, our hope is not to fight for peace. We can always settle our grievances peacefully without spilling any blood. I will therefore take this opportunity on this special day that symbolizes the unity and oneness of our great nation, to ask all Nigerians to embrace peace and dialogue, whatever your grievances. The seeds of violence are planted in people's heads through words. Reckless utterances of a few have led to losses of many innocent lives and destruction of properties. Such unfiltered and unsubstantiated lies and hate speeches by a few evil persons must be stopped. Our media houses and commentators must move away from just reporting irresponsible remarks to investigating the truth behind all statements and presenting the facts to readers. We must all come out and speak against the lies being peddled. At this point, I would want to sincerely appreciate the large number of our traditional, religious, and community leaders, as well as other well-meaning Nigerians who, in their various fora, are openly spreading the message of peaceful coexistence and conflict settlement through dialogue in their respective communities. Nigeria is for all of us. Its unity is not negotiable, and its ultimate success can only be achieved if we all come together with a common goal of having peace and prosperity for our nation. We shall continue to work on dialogue-based solutions to address legitimate grievances, but we remain ready to take decisive actions against secessionist agitators and their sponsors who threaten our national security. The recent arrests of Nnamdi Kanu and Sunday Adeyemo and the ongoing investigations being conducted have revealed certain high-profile financiers behind these individuals. We are vigorously pursuing these financiers, including one identified as a serving member of the National Assembly. Fellow Nigerians, this is a clear example of how people abandon their national leadership positions for their selfish gains. Instead of preaching unity, they are funding and misleading our youth to conduct criminal acts that sometimes lead to unfortunate and unnecessary loss of lives and property. As the so-called leaders run abroad to hide, our innocent youth are misled and left in the streets to fight for their senseless and destructive causes. Government will continue with greater level of people's participation and in collaboration with our international partners to improve the security architecture, reduce an enabling environment for criminality to thrive, and eliminate opportunities for terrorism financing. Fellow Nigerians, our unrelenting effort at resolving an almost 2 decades toil on the management of our petroleum resources and ensuring equitable consideration to our host communities has resulted in the enactment of the Petroleum Industry Act 2021. This act not only overhauls the institutional, regulatory, and fiscal framework of the petroleum industry, but also reduces the previous opacity associated with this sector. This is a first step to the reform, as the process is a continuous one. Already, to further improve the governance framework, I have sought for an amendment of Section 11, subsection 2b, and Section 34, subsection 2b. We also continue to review and amend as appropriate. At this juncture, It is very appropriate that I salute the leadership and members of the Ninth Assembly for their patriotism, dedication to duty, candor, and most importantly, the dispatch with which they have enacted legacy legislations for this nation. I do not take such a level of cooperation for granted and hope it continues for the overall efficiency of the federal machinery. Nigeria's roadmap on local refining is on track with the commissioning of a modular refinery in Imo State. A second is scheduled for commissioning by the end of this year in Edo State, and the third one in Bayelsa State by 2022. In addition to the modular projects, we also have the two mega refinery projects coming up in Lagos and Akwa Ibom State. As these refineries are commissioned, more employment opportunities are created, and there would be increased petroleum products available for local consumption, which will significantly reduce our reliance on importation. In further demonstrating our plan to reduce our dependence on oil and tapping from our enormous gas resources, this administration remains committed to the Decade of Gas initiative, which is aimed at bringing to focus the utilization of our huge gas resources. Already, we are supporting and promoting various gas-based projects, including NLNG Train 7 and the mega urea and ammonia projects in the South-South region. As we continue to optimize and enhance our oil and gas sector, I am also proud and delighted to state that our economic diversification strategy remains on course with the persistent increase in non-oil sector contribution to GDP. We recovered from economic recession in Q4 of 2020 with a GDP growth rate of 0.11% and grew by 0.51% and 5.01% in real terms in the first and second quarters of 2021. The agricultural sector remains key to our economic diversification efforts, as the sector has been a consistent driver of the non-oil sector, contributing 22.35% and 23.78% to the overall GDP in the first and second quarter of 2021. We have seen significant private sector investment in almost all areas of the agricultural value chain, and these have continued even during the COVID-19 pandemic. Unfortunately, as our food production capacity has increased, food prices have been going up due to artificial shortages created by middlemen who have been buying and holding these essential commodities for profiteering. To address this, I am hereby directing the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development to rehabilitate the National Food Reserve Agency and also work with security agencies, the Nigerian Commodity Exchange, and the National Assembly to find a lasting solution to these disruptive and unpatriotic hoarding activities. To further enhance food production, we have completed several new dams and are in the process of rehabilitating several river basin development authorities to enhance groundwater supply for rain-fed agriculture as well as surface water for irrigation agriculture. The water projects we completed between 2015 to to 2020 have improved Nigeria's access to potable water to 71% between 2015 and 2020. This means 12.5 million additional Nigerians now have direct access to potable water. Fellow Nigerians, this government remains concerned by the significant transportation infrastructure deficit we have. Addressing the challenges our commuters and lorry drivers face on the motorways is still a high priority to us. To complement our budgetary allocations, the Presidential Infrastructure Development Fund and the Road Infrastructure Development and Refurbishment Investment Tax Credit Scheme, we recently established a 15 trillion naira infrastructural corporation of Nigeria Limited, which is expected to begin operation by the fourth quarter of this year. Infraco will also focus on leveraging resources on a public-private sector basis for infrastructural development in Nigeria. We hope through these innovative programs, the additional cost burden on individuals and businesses because of inefficient logistic operations will be reduced and ultimately eliminated. We currently have over 13,000 kilometers of roads and bridges under construction all over the country, of which a fair percentage have been completed. As we fix our roads, we also continue to extend and upgrade Nigeria's railway network with the notable opening of the Warri to Itape standard gauge rail line. To increase capacity, we have introduced more locomotives, coaches, and wagons, including the establishment of our wagon assembly in Kajola, Ogun State. The seaports, however, still remain problematic. The effect of our various interventions to reduce the gridlock and inefficiencies have been slower than expected. However, the implementation of the electronic call-up system, as well as the conversion of the Lily Pond container terminal to a vehicle transit area will further enhance the ease of cargo evacuation. Our prioritization of developing Nigeria's digital economy has positively impacted the contribution of the ICT sector to our GDP. We hope our present efforts to ensure all Nigerians use a national identification number, as well as our planned rollout of the fifth generation network technology, will ensure we stay in line with the global innovation curve as a nation. As we embrace the digital economy in Nigeria, we are fully aware of the prospects and the perils. Our policies have been developed to enable Nigerians to take advantage of the prospects and avoid the perils of digital technologies. Social media is a very useful platform that has enabled millions of Nigerians to connect with loved ones, promote their businesses, socialize, and access news and other information. However, recent events have shown that the platform is not just an innocuous platform for information dissemination. Rather, some users have misused the platform to organize, coordinate, and execute criminal activities, propagate fake news, and promote ethnic and religious sentiments. To address these negative trends, the federal government of Nigeria suspended the operation of Twitter in Nigeria on June 5, 2021, to allow the government to put measures in place to address these challenges. Following the suspension of Twitter operations, Twitter Incorporated reached out to the federal government of Nigeria to resolve the impasse. Subsequently, I constituted a presidential committee to engage Twitter to explore the possibility of resolving the issue. The committee, along with its technical team, has engaged with Twitter and have addressed a number of key issues. These are A, national security and cohesion; B, registration, physical presence and representation; C, fair taxation; D, dispute resolution; and E, local content. Following the extensive engagements, the issues are being addressed, and I have directed that the suspension be lifted, but only if the conditions are met to allow our citizens continue to use the platform for business and positive engagements. As a country, we are committed to ensuring that digital companies use their platform to enhance the lives of our citizens, respect Nigeria's sovereignty, cultural values, and promote online safety. Nigeria's progressive diplomacy continues to manifest through growing numbers of highly placed Nigerians in positions of regional and global influences. Very recently, Nigeria won election for the position of Commissioner for the Expanded Political, Peace and Security Affairs of the African Union. Our persistent calls for a reorganized and reformed ECOWAS to make the organization citizen-sensitive paid off with the acceptance by the authority of heads of state and government of ECOWAS to commence the agreed reforms in the organization ahead of the next election of the organization principal officers in December this year. As the African Development Bank, World Trade Organization, and indeed the United Nations footprints of Nigeria's diplomacy are clearly evident. We remain confident that our goal of lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in 10 years is achievable. Considering the positive impact of our social investment programs, I recently approved an increase in the number of NPower program beneficiaries from 500,000 to 1 million. Out of this, 510,000 have started the program, while the competitive selection process for onboarding the outstanding 490,000 beneficiaries is in progress. The National Homegrown School Feeding Program is currently being implemented in 35 states of the Federation and the FCT. Over 103,000 women have been engaged and empowered as cooks under the program, while about 10 million pupils are being fed across public primary schools in the country. To grant increased access to credit to the most poor and vulnerable, I have directed an increase in the disbursement of government enterprise and empowerment program loans to an additional 1 million beneficiaries, laying more emphasis on the smallholding farmers through the Farmers' Money Program. Fellow Nigerians, for far too long, we have neglected the centrality of the civil service as the engine of governance, and this has manifested in ineffective service delivery. There is widespread discontent and disillusion about the efficiency and probity of our civil service. It is for this reason that we are refocusing the Nigerian civil service to provide world-class service to run our country. The youth of this great country remain propellants for our today and provide guarantees that we will have a secure tomorrow. It is for this reason that I remain focused on expanding opportunities for their participation in politics and governance. Recent appointments of young people into positions of authority and their track record so far gives me confidence that we need to bring more of them into governance, and this I promise to do. More specifically, to encourage girl-child education, female scholarship schemes, life skills, and digital literacy skills to boost girls' enrollment, retention, and completion of schooling are all initiatives put in place to ensure gender balance in appropriately positioning our youth for positions of leadership. The commitment of this administration to the well-being of people living with disabilities remain unwavering. Government recognizes their contributions to development, and I have, in this regard, directed all relevant government agencies pay special attention to the peculiarities of different abilities in the implementation of policies and programs. Rape and gender-based violence remains a sore point in our nation, as in many countries worldwide, and this was worsened during and after the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. We are currently engaging heads of courts to establish specialized courts for the speedy and seamless trial of rape gender-based offenses, especially to ensure that justice is done for child victims of sexual violence. On the other hand, work has advanced in the reformation, reintegration, and reunification of minors involved in one crime or the other. The reformation in our correctional services has manifested in an increase in modernized custodial centers and a transformation from strictly punitive to attitudinal changes so that criminals do not relapse into their previous lifestyles. As we begin to celebrate our 61 years as a nation, we need to be conscious that Nigeria does not start and end with the federal government. This country is a great collective where government at all arms and levels, as well as the private sector, and more importantly, individuals, have a role to play. In particular, security is a bottom-to-top undertaking. Joining hands and hearts together would enable us to secure ourselves and our country. I fully understand the anxiety of many Nigerians on the inability of this country to go beyond our never-ending potential for becoming a great nation to an actually great one. A lot has been achieved in the last 6 years on many fronts, in infrastructure, social care, governance, Nigeria's image and influence in Africa and the international community. But critics, with has diagnosed incremental progress as stagnation. Since coming to power, this administration has tackled our problems head-on in spite of the meager resources. No government since 1999 has done what we have done in 6 years to put Nigeria back on track. We shall continue to serve the country, listen to all, and protect our democracy and the country. Thank you all, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
And good morning to you, and of course, thanks for joining us on the breakfast here on Plus TV Africa. It's a very beautiful Friday morning, public holiday across Nigeria because we're celebrating Nigeria's 61st Independence Day. And of course, we're going to be having loads of these conversations this morning for everyone who got to watch the president address the country this morning from 7 a.m. Pretty interesting speech.
Indeed. Good morning to you. Welcome again to The Breakfast. My name is Annetta Felix. Looking forward to really unbundling the president's speech. We just listened to that, really lengthy, covered just about every aspect of our society. We have been clamoring for the president to speak, and he has spoken on key issues that affect all of us. And I think I want us to begin from the bottom, right? He mentioned one of his final speeches, this was in his 100th point, that no government since 1999 has done what the Buhari administration has done in 6 years to put Nigeria back on track. Looking forward to getting our guests to really analyze this statement because even though there are definitely lots of high points of the Buhari administration, but lots of people argue that there has to be a balance to that conversation, which means bringing to the table all the negatives, really, that have occurred while Buhari has been in power in the past 6 years. So him making that assertion to say that no government has ever done what he's done in the past 6 years, since 1999, really would be its subject of debates, really, when the conversation starts proper, don't you think?
Yeah, so I don't expect, the president to go on live television and say that they failed. So, it's expected that he will make those type of statements, comparing, what Nigeria achieved between 1999 and 2015, and in the last 6 years. There's a lot of people who would argue, that, of course, we've basically gone 50 years back in the last 6 years. And of course, so you just mentioned that there's lots and lots of achievements. There's also people who would argue that they can't really see anything that is different. I think one of the first things that I would like to bring up this morning really is how inspiring is the speech, because aside the things that are read out, there's people who will mention that this is not even a live speech, it's recorded, it's pre-recorded. And so aside, the things that are mentioned in the speech, how inspiring really is the speech? When you see your president speak to you, how many people look at those things, or look at the last 30 minutes of the president speaking and say, yes, I believe in Nigeria, I believe in the things that the president is saying, and I'm looking forward to, the beauty and the things that he is promising. That's, one angle. And, he also made mention that Nigeria's unity is non-negotiable. There's, many arguments about those things. We're going to be joined this morning by Mr. Opunabo Inkotaria. And of course, we'll be having a review of what President Muhammadu Buhari has, of course, spoken to Nigerians about this morning. Good morning. Thanks for joining us, sir.
Good morning, Jide Johnson.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you, Anita. Good morning.
Morning, Jide Johnson.
Happy independence to you, to all Nigerians, both at home and in diaspora.
All right.
It's the dawn of a new season.
Thanks for joining us. Of course, Opunabo Inkotaria will be joining us later. My mistake. Jide Johnson, I want to start with, the thing that I was just mentioning, and that is really watching the last 30 minutes of the president speaking to Nigerians. Did you feel inspired? Do you think that, a lot of Nigerians have looked at that and, are excited about how far Nigeria has come in the last 6 years and where we might be headed?
All you need to do is for you to do the content analysis and the textual analysis of the president's speeches, the one he made today, the one he made on June 12th, the one he made last year, and the series of speeches he has delivered, you just discover that they are the same. They are just recycled speech. I have directed to so and so. We have engaged. We are going to make. They are just promissory statements. No clear-cut policy direction. In those speeches, they are just for me, they are just rhetorics playing on words and intelligence of Nigeria. There is food scarcity. You talked about the price index of product going up. Despite that you have made economic gains in terms of growth, in terms of your GDP, and you can't situate that there are some middlemen that are responsible for that hoarding of food for their own personal gain. In a sense, you have directed. We keep hearing directive in those speeches. For me, so I was not inspired. That's one. Two, I don't understand why our leaders would think that what we deserve is not limited to this particular president. There's been the practices, and I think it's something that started in the era of military regime. For them to address us through recorded speeches and not speeches that are delivered live to us where everybody tunes in. In the past, we used to listen to these speeches in the night. This time around, we just sit down and record the speeches. That's why sometimes these speeches are not inspiring, because every Nigerian knows that, these speeches are recorded, and so we can give it to you whenever you want it. So that's my take. That's my take on that. And then you just look at what the president said concerning Twitter. We have engaged Twitter. I set up a presidential committee They've engaged them, and then they will leave the ban. The president talked about the girl child, and I've asked many people, when you devote too much focus and attention on the girl child, what happens to the boy child? Who is going to marry the girl child in the future? All these cliches and all these buzzword and the rest of it. Every child is important, both girl and boy. If you train your girl child and you train your girl child and you leave the boy child alone, who is going to get married to? All you need to do is for you to take a sample survey. And I'll give you an example. I try to personalize things. And my son will be 20 next year. He's 19 plus. If you ask him about marriage, there's what he tells you that he's not interested in marriage. And he's not the only one. There are so many young boys out there. Go and ask them. You go and ask how many ladies out there. Because in the last 20, 25 years, you have been talking about the girl child. You left the boy child alone. For me, when people talk about that, it's just following the Western world. And the Western world are facing the problem. I listened to the House of Rep members talking about 70% of African American fathers abandoning their home, leaving the home for the mothers alone, and as a result of that has created problem. Same thing with Hispanics. I think among the Hispanics about 40%, among the whites about 30%. So basically, every child needs to be taken care of. Every child needs to be. But we don't have to be carried away by the Western ideology and Western ideas and bring it back home and we think it will work. And then the president said, oh, they have just realized that the civil service is very, very important and crucial to governance. In actual sense, they said, so they are going to make investment in that. Anyone that does not understand that now, that has been president in 1983 to 84, and is now saying that in 2021, does not seem to understand what governance is all about. And there are some things which came out of that speeches and which created fear for me. When you talk about this food index and the rest of it, and then they're talking about the commodity board, they are going to. I remember that when we tell people that we used to queue to buy bread, we used to queue to buy milk, we used to queue to buy essential commodities in 1983 and 1984. When I tell my sons some certain, they say that is not possible. That can never happen in Nigeria. Nigeria that is full of abundance. And sometimes some of the speeches of the president tends to resonate with that particular. It recreates that particular period, that particular era, and those that are in my generation and above can relate with it. That is more or less like we're in the same cycle. So
yeah.
For me,
so now you're here, Judy Johnson. I want you to continue with this, but what the president mentioned was that the artificial shortages and the increase in price of food are caused by middlemen who have been hoarding products, and that's what has led to the increase in price of foodstuff across the country. And then he said he was going to set up the board.
He has directed the Ministry of Agriculture. He has directed
security agencies,
Nigerian forces, security agents, Nigerian security agents, and then the National Assembly. And I ask this question: why are they elected and appointed in the first instance? That's the question you need to ask. Why do they need presidential directive to do their job? Why? Who are these middlemen? They are ghosts. They are not Nigerians. Where do they hoard this food? The prices of commodity. I go to the market regularly. I'm a single parent, so I go to the market regularly. So I know what the price indexes are, what the commodity price indexes are. I know. So I know. I service my car, I service my gen, so I know the price index of commodities and goods in this country. So who are the middlemen? They are ghosts. If you have a Ministry of Agriculture and you have different agencies under Ministry of Agriculture, and it is possible for people to hoard food, definitely, when it's possible for people to be kidnapped in this country and pay ransom, and for security agencies not to locate them, then it is easier to even hoard food. So that's just my take on it. The security agencies that have been overstretched in providing security will now also be given an assignment, for them to hoard food. Now we close border. Now if our border is closed, where are they holding this food? Where are they taking them to? Because if our border is open, now it's okay. They are People are engaged in illegal activities, probably exporting our food through illegal routes. But that does not occur in this particular instance. We should understand that we face these challenges when a lot of farmers couldn't go to their farm. We have not seen anything yet. I'm not a prophet of doom. I just had an interaction with one of my students that operates a farm. He had over 600 acres of farm somewhere in Oyo State. And he said he has abandoned his farm. Yesterday, he told me that he's going back to Ibadan. Today, that some people wanted to sell their farms, that farmers are selling their farm. Nobody wants to go to the farm because they are not making anything out of the farm. If you are not careful, you are kidnapped and you use whatever you make from the farm to pay ransom. Even workers are not interested in going to the farm. So there are things that the president can live in Aso Rock, operate on his Olympian height, far away from reality, but lives based on the reports and the memo that his appointees are giving to him. But the reality on ground does not match what the president is talking about. Because you could see, it's clear. What he needs to do is to leave Aso Rock and go to Nyanya Market or go to any market in Abuja. Remove the felony of that office. And then they come to the reality of it. If the National Assembly can do its oversight function and the Ministry of Agriculture, with all its personnel, can do it, it's the security agencies that will do it. And those middlemen, they are making life difficult. Those middlemen are working contrary to national issues. They are committing treason and felony. They should be arrested and they should be tried and they should be named.
All right, Jide Johnson, when the president began his speech, one of the first things he said was that the past 18 months have been some of the most difficult periods in the history of Nigeria. And since the civil war, that he doubts whether Nigeria has ever been through a period of challenges because of the COVID-19 pandemic, as Nigeria did during the Civil War. I wasn't born at that time, so let's get your perspective if the president's analogy and comparison is correct, that we're going through harder times now because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and that the presidency is going through more challenges than in the Civil War era, and maybe if we need to cut the president some slack.
Well, the pandemic brought its own attendant challenges. No doubt, it caused a major disruption. A major disruption in the socio, political, and economic life of our nation. Not only our nation, across the globe. So it did not affect Nigeria in isolation. The Civil War affected Nigeria alone as a nation. The pandemic is a global disruption. Now, how did we respond to it? I agree that it brought its own attendant challenges, but how did we respond to it? What measures did we put in place? So for the president to separate that with the civil war that happens between 1967 and 1970, I think it's a wrong analogy for as far as I am concerned, because that civil war was dealt with by Nigerians, and I guess Nigerians did not even go through this type of hardship we are going through now. It's pretty difficult for an average. I know what I'm talking about. It's pretty difficult for an average Nigerian. If for those of us, for you that are in the studio and for the viewers that are listening to us at home, they can tell you for a fact the kind of pressure you receive because you are working, because people see you that you are working, and the kind of pressure you receive when people are calling you for relief measures, for palliative and whatever. When someone will just call you, someone will just say, if only you can give me 5,000, if only you can give me, I just need 2,000. Just, all those numerous calls you will receive on daily basis, and every Nigerian receives. But we don't have access to bogus allowances like the National Assembly or allowances like the senators or political appointees who are entitled to, they get all of the allowances. If we face that challenge, what measures did the president do to reduce the cost of governance? What measure? Because if you look at the cost of governance in Nigeria, you discover that we have more money being spent on recurrent expenditure than capital expenditure. We are breaking every rule of productivity. When you spend more money, when you consume more and you produce less, the more you consume, the less you produce, and the more difficult it becomes for you. So what steps has the government taken in reducing the cost of governance, in managing managing the austerity measure? So for me, things are difficult, but not only difficult for Nigerians, it affected every part of the world. But what measures did they put in place across the globe to deal with the issue? And what measures did we put in place to deal with the issue in Nigeria? Were we giving palliative? Those palliatives were ordered. Just like the president said, some people ordered food. And not a single person has been prosecuted for ordering the palliatives. Not a single person has been shamed, has been named and shamed for ordering the palliative. We live with that as business as usual. We don't even know whether some of the palliatives are still in some warehouses rotting away, just like those ones that were discovered that brought about the beast in every Nigerian. And people don't understand that an hungry man is an angry man. People thought that Nigerians have animalistic tendency. All you need to do is just to look at video clips from Britain when they had issues of fuel shortages, and then you see that what usually happens when we have fuel shortages in Nigeria was recreated across Great Britain, where people you thought were gentlemen and ladies were throwing blues at the fuel station. So if you don't put in measures, you make people, you return people to self-help, and in self-help situation, the survival of the fittest. So right. I don't think there's any measure. Yeah.
Yeah, let me just also bring, maybe one or two other things. He's blamed middlemen. He's blamed COVID-19. He's also blamed certain financiers. When he made mention of Nnamdi Kanu and Sunday Igboho, he said that, these are, persons who have tried to, of course, break apart the country. They are secessionists, and that the current administration will deal decisively and take decisive actions against secessionist agitators, and said that Nnamdi Kanu and Sunday Igboho have financiers, some of which are in the National Assembly. But the angle, I'm sure you may want to spread your thoughts into some of all these things, but the angle I want to look at is the fact that the government has taken no blame whatsoever for anything. Either it's financiers or middlemen, or it's COVID-19, or just anything that can be blamed. The government has gone ahead to of course, blame them without taking any responsibility for any of these challenges.
The foundation of any building determines the type of structure you're going to put on that building. When this administration came into power in 2015, it took the president more than 6 months to constitute his cabinet. And people said, the president needs to pick the best set of people, it's not business as usual. He's trying to look for the best, to get this, to get that. And by the time the cabinet was constituted, it was even worse than business as usual, because it was made up of political class, people that have been part of. So we lost 6 to 7 months setting the records, setting the national economy on track. And that setback, this administration has not recovered from it. There are many programs I did concerning that, condemning that action, that the president should constitutionally was required to constitute his cabinet. He cannot run the presidency alone. It's the executive, and the executive is not complete without the cabinet. That what the president is doing is not constitutional. And we have seen that people have justified that when the former Osun State governor who happens to be the Minister of Interior now, almost run the state for almost 4 years without this commissioner. So that's where the blame game starts. When you don't, the first step to solving a problem is for you to realize and accept responsibility for whatever actions or inactions you have taken. All we have seen with this administration is to blame every other person. Now, if they are financiers or secessionists, no problem. Identify them. Name them. Prosecute them. Let Nigeria know, because you have the intelligence. Not okay, there are National Assembly members that are financing secessionists. There are two ways you can look at it. One, you could call them secessionists. You could call them self-determination people, depending on whatever nomenclature you want to use. Just like we term banditry as, we term people that are terrorists as banditry, and we are slow at tagging them and labeling them as terrorists, but we are quick at labeling people that are calling for self-determination, the right of self-determination, secessionists. If there are National Assembly members that are financing them, fantastic. The president should name them. But the president is slow to name those that are financing Boko Haram and those that are financing terrorists that even United Arab Emirates have named, have identified some that are sponsoring Boko Haram in Nigeria. I think they owe us a responsibility of giving us a truthful account of what happens. That's transparency in government. Name whoever is responsible. Let us know those that want to destroy the unity of this country. Let us know those that are causing chaos in this country. But let us not situate those that are calling for let us not term those that are calling for self-determination secessionists if there is a right for self-determination as enshrined in United Nations Charter. A friend of mine did a short interview with me yesterday, and he asked me what are the gains that we have made as a country. I said, well, you know what? For us to be together as a nation for 61 years, that's a gain. That's the way I look at it, despite all the challenges that we have. That some nations have come into existence even after our own. They are no longer nations till now. They are no longer nations till now. And then what do we need to do? We need to identify those things that have united us, and then we need to identify those things and work on those things that have united us. And those things that want to disintegrate this nation, we need to identify those issues and deal with it. And when people are helpless and there is no hope in the system, in the nation, they believe that, okay, well, when we go back to your tent, O Israel, when we go back to our tent, our lives will be better. When you look at the structure of Nigeria, when you look at what is the hope for an average and every Nigerian, you see, we still have some measure. If they are talking about people on the street and people, when the governors themselves are divided, you have the Northern Governors Forum, you have the Southern Governor Forum. Where is that written? Where the governors cannot meet? The Nigerian Governors Forum, I'm not sure they have met. They have not met since the issue of 16 and 19. They have not met. They have not found a head. So you have the Northern Governors Forum are meeting, the Southern Governors Forum are meeting, and then you said you have a nation. A nation where you have, and then a nation where you have, I'm coming, let me end it. A nation where you have the Attorney General talking about penal code, where you have the penal code in the north, and then you have the criminal code in the south. A nation where you have ISBA in Kano, and that can arrest anybody based on the way they dress, based on whatever they drink and they eat. And you just discover that there are things that we are doing that is causing division rather than promote unity. So it is not those that are agitating alone. It is even the political actors are promoting divisions in Nigeria more than those that are agitating for. But what we have seen is blame. When you blame others and you don't blame yourself, it shows that you are irresponsible. You are not ready. What is responsibility? Now, responsibility is the ability to respond. That's what it means. Ability to respond to situations and issues. Now, when you have that ability, but when you blame others, it means that you are disabled in responding to issues. And that's why we have a catalog of issues, and these issues keep to be a recurring feature across the nation.
Jide Johnson, thank you very much for your time that you've taken to analyze the president's speech this morning. Do have a great day and happy Independence Day.
Thank you very much, Aneta. And once again, thank you, Osaria. It's a pleasure to be with you guys this morning.
Absolutely.
Happy independence.
Enjoy the public holidays.
Okay, so we're going back to 1960, right? Today in history, the day where Nigeria became independent. We basically, became independent after decades of British rule. It was a very interesting time in Nigeria's history. There's been this clamor for independence, and eyewitnesses there said that just before the stroke of midnight, the British flag was basically lowered down. And then when it was midnight, the lights were switched back on again, and we saw the green, red, green Nigerian national flag standing there majestically for all to see. The celebration for independence took place for weeks on. And here in Nigeria, here in Lagos, it went on for the celebration occurred at the Tafawa Balewa Square, right here in the city. So interesting times for Nigeria getting independence. Lots of events leading up to that period. And we know what happened 7 years later when, there was an agitation for a breakaway state. But it was in this day in history that we became independent under a constitution that provided for a parliamentary system of government and a substantial measure of self-government for the 3 regions in the country at that time. The federal government received exclusive powers for defense, foreign relations, and commerce, as well as fiscal policy. The UK retained the British monarch, Queen Elizabeth II, as nominal head of state and the Queen of Nigeria. 3 years later, in 1963, Nigeria became a republic. But yes, that coup definitely still part of our history, 1967.
Yeah, 1960, 1967, no. We became a republic in 1963.
63, yes.
Yeah, so independence 1960 and then a republic 1963. 4 years later, civil war. And of course, the journey has just continued to be, sometimes smooth, sometimes rocky since then. There's, of course, been people who have made history, the person who designed the Nigerian flag, the person who, of course, wrote the Nigerian national anthem, and all the people who have played, very, very interesting role in the journey that we currently have been in, from military rule and eventually now to democratic rule. Of course, there was a brief stint of democratic rule before. Of course, there was a coup in the 80s. Shehu Shagari was overthrown by a military officers back then, and eventually it's been a mix of emotions, to be honest. And there's also those who would say that 1960 maybe never should have happened the way that it happened. The joining of these regions and of course Lord Lugard's influence and some of all of that shouldn't have happened. The 3 regions weren't meant to be together in the first place, and maybe we would have been maybe would have grown at completely different paces. Over time. There's those who had projected back then that Nigeria would have been, one of the fastest, actually at that time was one of the fastest growing nations in that period. But, corruption, mismanagement, coups, tribalism, some of all of that have just been some of the things that have completely slowed down the growth trajectory of Nigeria. But here we are today celebrating 61 years after independence, and I guess Nigerians themselves, like Jide Johnson mentioned, one thing to celebrate is the fact that we have stayed together for those 61 years. President Muhammadu Buhari said this morning, Nigeria's unity is non-negotiable. And we'll talk about that after this short break with our guest who will be joining us to review once again Nigeria's independence after 61 years.
61 years after independence, how has the country fared? Are we happy with our economy? Are we secure with the constant news of kidnappings? And how good is our governance? Join us on Plus Politics this Friday, 1st of October 2021 at 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. as we look at some of these issues. Plus Politics, keeping you in the know.
The Independence Day usually comes with a multiplicity of reactions from Nigerians. PlusTvAfrica took to the streets to get reactions on their dream Nigeria.
Then we did that place where be the president, may they help us. Try, may they make things easy for us.
We want the country to be improved, to create jobs, and people that do not have jobs, let them have jobs so that no stealing, no corruption. All those people who used to beg, so we want to abandon all those things for Nigeria so that we want Nigeria to look like small London.
If to say work day, if you come meet person say, we'll go do, but you go say, I will get woko. I no go fit do bati.
Our president, Muhammad Buhari, you have to take an absolute action about what is happening in Nigeria. We have to go through deep into it. Nigeria is supposed to change. It's not like it's not supposed to Nigeria. When you call Nigeria, it's not supposed to be like this.
I want this Nigeria to be good so that everybody will enjoy it. I want the leaders so that they think about the poor men, they think about the common man, so that when the country is good, everybody will hear us. Other foreign countries would like to come to here and do business.
Let the government know that Nigeria is a better place for us to stay. Let the government, let them be shoveled. In fact, the whole system should be touched.
There is no picture. I wanted to come up with a picture. If we can come up with a picture, then the future of Nigeria can turn green again.
Our leaders knows how we were before and the way we are coming till today. If it will go like that, I'll be very happy. I think it's my own country also. I will benefit, them too will benefit.
That should create a better future for the youth. A better future that maybe tomorrow our children, they will say, yes, this is the kind of country they like to grow up in.
Nigeria's Niger Delta region, from where the black gold fuels Africa's largest economy, where the lines between wealth and poverty has never been thinner. Conflicts, poverty, insecurity, and environmental challenges daily confront the region. How can the Niger Delta story be changed for the better?
Join Mamode Akuga at 9 p.m. every Friday evening on PlusTvAfrica as he probes deep in search of solutions.
Inside the Niger Delta with Mamode Akuga, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region.
Hello and welcome. It's Nimasa This Week, the voice of maritime. Nimasa This Week is brought to you by the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. Statutorily mandated to ensure that there's regulation and promotion of matters affecting our waters. NIMASA bears responsibility for search and rescue, shipping development, and ship registration.
NIMASA This Week, the voice of maritime, showing on this channel.
Businesses in Africa can be very challenging. In Nigeria, it is particularly intimidating, and successful builders have learned how to navigate a hostile environment to unlock opportunities. But one major challenge businesses face is how to filter through the noise and identify where their ideal customers exist. Get insight and practical steps from industry players and captains of industries. Hear success stories to help you make informed decisions as you scale your business in Nigeria. Watch Business Insights at this time on PlusTvAfrica.
You're welcome back to the breakfast on Plus TV Africa, and happy Independence Day, Nigeria. This morning, we'll be taking a look at the good, the bad, and the ugly of the country called Nigeria as we celebrate our 61st independence anniversary. Joining us to do this is public affairs analyst, Mr. Opunabo Inkotaria. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Why does a lot of emphasis on all the things that are going wrong in Nigeria at the moment? I want us to begin with the positives. When you take a look at Nigeria since 1999, and then with a focus on the Buhari administration, what could you, say would be one of the greatest achievements so far?
The Buhari administration?
Yes, please.
Or from independence?
From independence and the Buhari administration.
Well, if it's from independence, the greatest achievement thus far is that we are still one. We don't have divisions, those divisions so far. The encasement is still one Nigeria. That's the greatest achievement thus far. I don't think there is any other achievement we can actually talk about. But if we talk of the Buhari's achievement, at the railway, I think that's all. Apart from the railway, there's really no other achievement.
So you commend the rail infrastructure, basically.
But Buhari's achievement is probably more of the negatives than the positives.
Well, the president, feels completely different. Of course, from his speech this morning, he said that in the last 6 years we've achieved a lot more than we have achieved, since 1999, and of course, with moves to put Nigeria on the right path. So what, may he be referring to? Is it, improvement in the agricultural sector? Is it science and technology? Is it maybe infrastructure, the fight against corruption? Of course, maybe, improvement in our GDP. Which exactly would you say the president might be referring to?
I don't think the president, how will I put it? They say in the local parlance that which person mama should play the sweets. I mean, you don't expect Mr. President to come on air and criticize himself or criticize his government. You don't expect that. He's going to come on air to give the impression, although in a futile manner. I say futile because as you are, nobody can convince you that you're a girl. Nobody can convince you that you're a woman. It's not possible. I mean, the facts tell us in the face. Are you talking of agriculture? If we talk of improvement in the agricultural sector, we are all aware of the hunger in the land. We are all aware of the skyrocketing prices of food commodities. So what are we talking about? Because the whole essence of improvement in the agricultural sector is a reduction of prices. In this particular instance, the reverse is the case. The cost of living is extremely high. Are you going to talk of, you mentioned one other thing, you mentioned about four other things. Please, can you remind me so that I can address it? So you talked about
I think I mentioned our GDP growth, agriculture, science and technology.
Now GDP growth. Now let us forget about the sophistry. Let's forget about the rhapsody and go to the facts. When you say GDP, what is GDP? What does GDP mean? You are learned, you are educated, I'm educated. So we all understand when they say GDP. But does it make sense when it cannot translate? The common man should not even, without understanding what GDP is, should be able to live very well, above board. That is the whole essence. When international communities talk of GDP, it translates. That's the whole, they are telling you this is the GDP, and by extension, it has improved on the lives, the economic lives of their citizens. Is that the case in Nigeria? That is not the case in Nigeria. Just yesterday or the day before, it was 580 naira to $1. So what GDP are we talking about? It makes the whole nonsense. Are you going to tell the market woman GDP? Are you going to tell the carpenter GDP? Are you going to tell the proletariat GDP? It means nothing to them. What does it translate into? That is what the people, the masses, that's not the hoi polloi, that's what they're after. What will it translate into? You're talking of improved GDP, meanwhile the cost of living is high. People can barely have a square meal in a day. So what essence is the GDP? So let's forget about this whole grammar. The whole bottom line is cost of living. The market woman does not, okay, even as educated as you are, of what importance is the GDP to you if you cannot pay your children's school fees, if you cannot put food on the table, if you cannot pay your electricity bill, if you cannot do the basics. We are not talking of luxuries now, the basics of what importance is GDP.
Okay.
So it doesn't make sense at all. You mentioned one other thing again apart from the GDP.
I really was just sharing those things. We may not need to focus on them, individually. I just wanted to know what the president may have been referring to when he said that we've done, pretty well compared to where we.
I'm very sorry to say this on air. I don't even believe that the president understands what he's doing. It's a speech presented to him, and he's just doing it out to the nation. That's something like this. If he tells Mr. President to analyze the speech himself, he cannot even analyze that speech. It is written for him to read out to the nation. That's simple as it is.
Well, many other people would disagree with you and say, that seems, almost like an insult to the president and his intelligence.
I know you play the devil's advocate. The only people that will disagree with me are those that are also benefiting from this system. Those are the ones that are good. Minority of them, because I believe majority of them are also disenchanted. So minority will just agree. Some are forced to agree because they don't have a choice. For example, like Mohammed, the spokesperson, like Additional and Co., are forced to agree because they don't have a choice. They have to defend the policy no matter how bad it is. That is what they are paid to do. But I can tell you that even those in the government, majority of them are not pleased because this is the worst government we've had, apart from the Abacha's government. This can be said to be the worst government in the history of this country.
All right, Mr. Inkotaria. Sorry, Anita. We've seen what the last few weeks or months, have been like here in Nigeria, and that includes security challenges. Yesterday, of course, we had to speak about the death of Dr. Chike Akunyili. We've also seen, about 35 people or 38 people who were murdered in the north, in I think Yobe State or Borno State, in the last 24 to 48 hours. We've seen the secessionist agitations, both from, the Sunday Igboho faction and, of course, Nnamdi Kanu. We've also seen, of course, the fight against corruption and how Nigeria has not really improved much in corruption index. There's a lot of things, that we can point out as, major challenges Nigeria is currently dealing with. Would you argue that, or would you agree with those who say that we were always heading down this path to where Nigeria is today? And these 61 years really have just been, moving in this same trajectory, and it's not necessarily the current administration that is to blame for where we are today.
Well, to a very large extent, I will say yes, because we are closing into a travesty called Nigeria. I've always said on this program, on a lot of other programs, and every other program I have a chance to speak, that unless we agree on what I refer to as the modus vivendi, we will never have it right. We will just be floundering in the morass of procedures. You see, Nigerians, we have different nations. It's made up of different nations. And we have failed to appreciate the fact that Nigeria is made up of different nations. We still see Nigeria as what I refer to as Yasmin twins. In other words, you cannot separate them. Like the Goodluck Jonathan, the leaders before him and after him have said, you cannot question the indivisibility of this country. And I just laugh because, you see, what action is different from, words are different from action. You can tell me, you can shout, you cannot invade my premises, you cannot rob my building, you cannot do this. But the man with a gun is invading. You don't have a gun, you don't have any means of defending yourself, and he's invading. You are just talking, he's doing the job. We can see that the fairness litigation under Buhari, it is because it is so accentuated under Buhari because of his style of leadership, capitalistic leadership. That is why it's so accentuated. Others were able to manage the difference. But no doubt from 1914 up to this, it was snowballing. I agree with you. We're definitely going to get to the point of anarchy if we don't address the burning salient issue. We're definitely going to get to that. The presidents before him were able to manage. But there's a great difference between managing a conflict and resolving the conflict. What our leaders have been doing in this country is to manage the conflict and not resolve the conflict. And so it festers, because when you bounce back, like when you're pushed to the wall, you bounce back with a double effort. That is what is going on now. And that is why the issue of secession is assuming apocalyptic dimension, because a lot of people are sick and tired of what is going on in this country. So a lot of people believe that stratagem is being employed just to keep the country together, whereas it has to be a willing thing. Not you don't need to coerce people. People must be willing. And how? You sit down and discuss. We had a lot of conferences in this country. And like I said before, we don't even need another national conference. It is completely unnecessary. All we need to do is conflate the various reports of all the conferences that have taken place. You add and subtract. And we are going to get a document, a workable and legitimate, not legal, legitimate document that Nigerians will work with. And everybody will be happy. But if we fail to do that, it's just a matter of time, because we are headed slowly, steadily, and cautiously to a rendezvous with anarchy. No amount of force can stop it. No amount of rhetoric can stop it. What will stop it is practical approach and the realization of the fact that we are different entities that are coming together for a common good. And unless that fact is realized, it will be a fleeting illusion to think that Nigeria will exist for another 30 years. That will be a fleeting illusion.
Okay. So we know that there's been lots of criticism of the presidency regarding insecurity. But one of the things the presidency mentioned here is that despite how it may be perceived by lots of Nigerians, that men and women of security agencies are actually taking the fight to the terrorists. And that in fact, in the north alone, over 3,000 Boko Haram insurgents have actually 8,000, over 8,000 Boko Haram terrorists have surrendered. He also went on to mention the thousands of personnel that have been recruited into the security space in Nigeria. Do you think that's something we should praise the president for? 8,000 surrendered Boko Haram terrorists and lots of investment in security.
I will start by saying the federal government is complicitous in the festering security situation in the country. And those so-called Boko Haram repentants, I don't think they are actually Boko Haram repentants. And allow me to lay the background. First and foremost, Mr. President is sympathetic to these criminals they call bandits. If you could recall, he was the first person who said, if the Niger Delta militants could be given amnesty, why not Boko Haram? Then again, when Boko Haram, that was preceding his president, again, when Boko Haram nominated persons to represent them, the person they nominated was General Muhammadu Buhari. So there is a strong nexus between the bandits and Mr. President. Now, we also have the issue of Gumi. If a Southerner should say a thing less as potent, as incendiary as Gumi has said, he would have been behind bars. Gumi was never the federal government's representative. Yet Gumi went to discuss with these Boko Haram people, had pictures with them, but he never pleaded with them. Let's get this fact straight. He never pleaded with them. He never insisted on the cessation of hostilities by the Boko Haram people. Rather, he gave the federal government a condition that unless they are granted amnesty, the Boko Haram, these bandits will continue in their iniquity. You can imagine daring Mr. President, daring the federal government. And yet, and Gumi also said that the federal government knows where these people are. That even the soldiers, the military commanders know where these people are. Gumi said it, I did not say. It was on national telly. What has happened? Nothing. That's why I said the federal government is complicit. Shortly after, they are talking of amnesty for this bandit. And they are talking of amnesty because the Niger Delta militants were given amnesty. But let us make the distinction here, because they are not the same in any material particular. Let us make the distinction here. A militant is different from a bandit. The Niger Delta militants, all they did was to frustrate the exploration of oil in the Niger Delta region. And that is a way to command the attention of the federal government that have decided on his eyes the other way, so much spirited out of the system with little or nothing to show for it. And Nigeria Delta still tomorrow are dying gradually because of the oil exploration and exploitation. The pernicious air they inhale. So they said, no, unless you address the Niger Delta issue, that we will not allow you to continue with this exploitation of oil in the Niger Delta region. They are talking of development. They did not vent their spleen on the regions, on other regions. They did not go out to kill people. They were not kidnapping persons. No. This is different from banditry. These are terrorists who are now, this is an ethnocentric war, who are trying to force their own style of religion, their own lifestyle on other people in the country. There are two different things. And waging a war against the federal government. So you can never compare them. I mean, it's a clear case of ethnic surveillance and poverty of blood. Now, how do you grant these amnesty people pardon? Or how do you grant these bandits amnesty? It is stupid. What of the family members they have killed? And this amnesty is only a decoy because they reintegrate. It has happened in Kaduna. It has happened in a few other states. They will reintegrate, they will come into the system, get reintegrated, get more converts, and will relaunch. Because what are you going to give to them? These are people that are used to receiving 50 million naira, 100 million naira, 200 million naira. So what are you going to give to them? And we are talking of prison congestion. When you reintegrate, where are you going to keep them? We have the IDP camps that you've not been able to take care of, and you're talking of 8,000 people. How are you going to reintegrate them into the system and satisfy them? It is just not possible. Right. But just because the Niger Delta militants were not killed, just because they were not prosecuted, it is as if, why will you prosecute our own? Why will you kill our own? But the situations are different. The scenarios are quite different. These are criminals waging war against a country. These other ones are saying, don't come into my house. You're an armed robber. You're a thief. Don't come into my house. I'm talking about Niger Delta militants. So there are two different things altogether. There's a question of, if we don't kill these people, you cannot kill my own. And that is the problem we have in this country.
All right, Mr. Ngutara.
That is the base. So he cannot
61.
gloat, he cannot gloat, he cannot vaunt over the issue of repentant militants. Those people are not repentant militants. They went and forced them to come out to claiming they are repentant. The people, I don't think they came out willingly. I doubt it. And even the Kaduna state government has said it, that he's not going to negotiate with them. So what is the whole problem? Why would you prosecute them?
Opunabo Nkotare, I'm not sure if you can still hear us, or we may have lost him briefly. I hope that we can reconnect with him the few minutes that we have left to quickly speak on what he feels is. Mr. Nkotare, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so final question from me. I want your thoughts on what you would describe as the most disappointing part of our journey in the last 61 years. And of course, the failures with which we've, the failures as a nation with being able to fix our leadership recruitment process, maybe that would have put us on a better trajectory. The influence of the military, since independence, with different coups here and there. But what would you say has been the most disappointing part in the last 61 years? And which parts would you, say has led to, the slow pace of growth for Nigeria as a country?
The most disappointing part to me, not just the military incursions, as bad as they are or they were, not just the military incursions, but the fact that we fail to realize that we are different nationalities in this country. And for as long as we deceive ourselves that we
All right, seems we may have lost him again. But of course, we're still discussing Nigeria 61 years later, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And of course, seeing what we've been able to achieve as a country, where we currently are headed. Are we going to celebrate Nigeria at 62 and 63 and 65? Or, is there going to be things that we may have to deal with in the future? And of course, does it seem in any way like Nigerians are proud of their country and their journey so far?
Yes, indeed. The president did mention things about diversity, the fact that, we're one great people, even though we have different cultures, different religions and things like that. But one of his final words was that security the unity of Nigeria, non-negotiable was still all hands must be on deck. We must all see the other person as an equal member of society. We must all value one another, and we must work with the government to make sure the country is a better place. Yes, we're not where we want to be, but if we must get to where we want to go to, we can not but do that together.
We'll go on a short break. When we come back, we're moving into a totally different conversation. And of course, in a bit to move forward, how much can we involve our young female Nigerians in science and technology? That's what comes up next here on The Breakfast. Good morning once again.
Praise God, from whom all blessings flow. Welcome to your favorite program, The Moment of Truth, brought to you by the Citadel Global Community Church. Our God is a God of salvation, far above all principality and power, and might and dominion, that regardless of what happens in this season, you will escape. Say to your neighbor, there is no peace for the wicked. The lazy man does not rouse what he took in hunting, but diligence is a man's precious possession. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might.
Moment of Truth with Pastor Tunde Bakare, Sundays, 7 p.m. on Plus TV Africa.
Increase the reach of your events or business services. To advertise on Plus TV Africa, please call 0906 000 5719 or 0909 040 8408, or send an email to marketing@plusttvafrica.com. Plus TV Africa. Big stories live here. "61 years after independence, how has the country fared? Are we happy with our economy? Are we secure with the constant news of kidnappings? And how good is our governance?" Join us on Plus Politics this Friday, 1st of October 2021 at 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. as we look at some of these issues. Plus Politics, keeping you in the know.
Nigeria, by extension, Africa, is faced with a lot of challenges. The growing youth population with little engagement, that is a ticking time bomb. We are a blessed people with diverse culture and highly cerebral minds who have a lot to say. And yes, we are talking. It is important we drive the right conversation that informs, inspires, influences thoughts and action. If we say there's beauty in our diversity, then let us embrace our diverse culture. We must continue to courageously be the voice of transformation as we are the hope for the future. Yesterday's conversations shape today. What are you saying to shape your tomorrow? We know you have a lot to say, and we are here to hear you.
Welcome back to The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. Statistics by UNESCO has shown that women in the tech industry constitute only 28% in the sector and just about 30% in sub-Saharan Africa. Now, a Nigerian called Anu Gopal, founder of Africa Agility Foundation, is working hard to close that gap, and we've invited her to our studio this morning to tell us all about her work. Good morning, Anu.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So let's talk first of all about the statistics regarding women and tech in Nigeria, Africa, and globally. What exactly is it, right? And does this come to you as something that we should have, surpassed many years ago?
Oh yes, that's absolutely correct. When we look at the statistics of African American and African women in technology, is 3%, which is really, really low. And what's the percentage of African women? It's less than 1%. So this is a big issue, not just in Africa, but all over the world. And there are so many organizations in the Western world, doing amazing work to make this happen. So I live in the United States, and I've done so much equipping, Western women with digital skills. And I just felt that this is the time to come back to my country and come back to my continent and empower especially our youths, because the most talented people in the world are the African youths.
Well, why do you think the statistics are so low for Nigerian mostly?
I believe it's opportunity, right? I studied computer science at University of Ibadan. For 5 years, I did not even see computer. And they were teaching us, all the old technology skills like Pascal, Fortran, and that was the tipping point for me. Having gone abroad to study and to live, I believe that African women, even youths, men, should be provided the opportunities needed. We are talented. It's just the opportunity that is missing.
And funding.
And funding,
Tell me more about the funding. Seeing that an institution as great as the University of Ibadan, did not have, those resources to enable computer science students to learn the practicals of what they're learning theoretically. So tell us about the need for funding in Nigeria's education space, especially from primary school upward.
Well, we need to revolutionize our educational system. It's really, really horrible. And this is not just for governments. This is for corporate organizations to do so much more in order to be able to develop the children. Like in August, Africa Agility had STEM for Kids. My 6-year-old knows how to build app in the United States. And I just said, you know what? We need to do exactly the same thing for the African kids. So we did STEM for Kids. And we trained children between the age of 10 to 15. And you can't believe after 2 weeks, children with no technical skills were able to build creative app. And age 13 to 15, build robots using artificial intelligence. So many amazing things can happen. We are not looking for, NGOs are not looking for, for hundreds of millions or thousands of dollars, right? Any amount is good enough to train at least one child.
Okay, now let's talk about the benefits, the things that they stand to gain, if they get, with your programs, the Africa Agility Foundation. What do young female Nigerians stand to gain? What programs can they learn what software they're going to be open to, learning how to use?
Oh, so many benefits. The skills that they are learning are the cutting edge skills in the world, highly sought out for artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science, UI, UX, web development, including Agile, the #1 innovation method in Silicon Valley. That's the secret sauce of Facebook, Microsoft, Toyota, all these companies. And it's not just, training them and giving them the practical experience needed. We also have a 3-month transformational program called the Lean Approach, where we pair these girls up with mentors from all over the world that will help them to improve those skills. And they are working on real projects that they can launch at any time if they are so passionate about it. And after the 3-month program, we are placing them in, different opportunities in Nigeria. Some of them are actually entrepreneur. We have one of our girls that actually built the website, the agricultural website for Ogun State government. We also have some of our girls that are freelancing for companies all over the world. So not just training them, but helping them to increase their earning power by finding the opportunities, the job for them.
So just talking about that, tell me about the job opportunities that women and even men who participate in the training by Agility Africa Foundation, can benefit. What are the job opportunities that they can have? What are the opportunities for career advancement? When they go ahead and build these apps, how can it transform society? What is the long-term benefit?
Oh, so they are actually building social economic, apps or websites or digital solutions that can solve African problems. Not just African, the world problems. Like in June, we have the Lagos State government governor that graced our occasion. And the girls that were at the June cohort, they actually built the top 3 Lagos challenges, wicked problems, traffic, waste management, and health. Even the governor said, wow, in the last 2 years, my administration, we've been talking about it. But he could not believe that in 2 days hackathon, girls that walked into the boot camp with no experience in technology could actually help him to solve the problems. The opportunities are there. But it's so unfortunate that, getting funding, getting companies that want to partner for internships and job placements in Nigeria, it's really, 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 really hard.
Tell me more about those apps, especially the one on traffic. What exactly do they do and how do they help the state?
So, for an example, in Lagos, if there was an accident, we have to wait for LASMA, right, to come. But the digital solutions that the girls actually built is any Lagos citizens can actually take pictures, images of the accident and everything that happened and send it to LASMA. They can actually see it on their digital platform without them actually coming to the accident scene. Also, they integrated a forum that is like Twitter on it. And with that, there's opportunity for car sharing. Or I live in Songota, for an example, and I work on the mainland. I work at UB. I'm just using UB as an example. Then I can do, and I'm not sure of how many people actually live in Songota, but we work in the same building. So that Twitter kind of forum that was built could actually help to connect people that work in the same place together or in the same company together, and they can do car sharing. Then also, instead of waiting for, maybe news feed from TV stations, citizens can actually reach out to everybody to say, what, don't pass this route because there's traffic, there's an accident, and also provide you alternative routes that can take you to where you need to go.
Okay, and I also want to talk about, how this, changes the narrative of the stereotypical occupations for girls normally. When most girls, in that age, primary, secondary school, are already pushed towards fashion and cooking and, home being housewives and some of all of that. So how does this change that narrative?
It changed the narratives a lot because our kids can actually become inventors. What's stopping them, right? most of them are being influenced by the society, by friends, even by families and uncles, right? This change in narratives, if these kids and if these youth can see alternative route that can help them to make the money and become who they want to become, a better version of, the best version of themselves, it's changed the narratives. And COVID-19 has already proven to the world that you don't need to go to a physical wall, to be able to work, or you don't need to, everybody can work from home. So there's opportunity to actually get jobs from any part of Africa. And there's opportunity for kids to actually become techpreneur.
So you're saying that parents need to open their minds to the possibilities that, their children could get. Also, the kids do not even need to have any knowledge whatsoever, any background information about tech. No. Just get enrolled and then they're on their way.
Just get enrolled. Because technology has changed the world. We are in the era of technology and it's not changing. We live by it, we breathe by it. Everything we do is all about technology. So, helping African youths, African children to learn this technology, especially these cutting edge skills right now, could propel them into the world. There's nothing stopping us from inventing something, disrupting the world with digital solutions. And people can see that, the best talents in the world, the best innovation in the world comes from Africa. And that's my dream.
Okay. Tell us about what, your foundation is planning for the rest of 2021. Are there programs coming up?
So we are almost about to go into partnership with Cisco. And there are opportunities to learn cybersecurity, networking, and all these other hardware skills. So we are so excited about that. And by the time the partnership is being, sealed up, then we can start having virtual classes for not just for children, but also for youths, both male and female. And that could actually help them to upskill as well. So that's our focus for this year. And our girls that have graduated as well, they are still part of the community. We are supporting them. Some of them, those of them that are working, we are still providing mentorship for them. 1 a.m., 2 a.m., they call the tutors, they call their mentors and ask for support. So that's still going on. And those that just graduated yesterday, they are going to go into the mentorship immersion program starting from next week, Monday. So there's a lot that will be going on in the background. But the next boot camp is going to start in 2022 because the year is almost coming to an end and December is almost there.
So for people who feel this must really cost an arm and a leg, is this true that, to get into tech space, you need to spend a lot to acquire the knowledge?
No. Everything we are doing is free.
Free?
Oh, it's free. They pay nothing. Because we are focusing on the less privileged young women in the society, those that cannot afford it. Those that cannot even afford transportation that we need to support. Those that cannot even afford to have a laptop that we need to provide a laptop for. So the only thing needed is just for them to find their way into the training center at Ikoyi and also at Surulere. We also provide lunch for them and good food.
Okay, all right. I'm guessing they can search for more information online, or how do they reach out to you?
Oh yes, people can reach out to us, by contacting team@africaagility.org, and also they can go to our website www.africaagility.org. So there's so much information on it.
So is it just for kids? If there are people who are adults who are interested in learning, are they welcome?
Our focus is on the children and the youths.
Okay.
Because they are the leaders of today, not tomorrow.
Good one there.
Anu Gopal, thank you so much
for you so much
the work
for
that you
having
do
me.
and for sharing your time with us this morning.
Thank you so
you very
much.
much.
Oh, happy Independence Day to you too.
All right, and this is where, of course, we'll wrap up the program this morning. It has been a very interesting conversation talking about Nigeria's 61st independence and also, the first edition for the new month
of October.
Interesting. So we wish you a very beautiful weekend ahead, public holidays, and see you back here again on Monday morning.
Bye-bye.
easy is it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria?
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Booking November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
61 years after independence, how has the country fared? Are we happy with our economy? Are we secure with the constant news of kidnappings? And how good is our governance? Join us on Plus Politics this Friday, 1st of October 2021 at 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. as we look at some of these issues. Plus Politics, keeping you in the know.
Increase the reach of your events or business services. To advertise on Plus TV Africa, please call 0906 000 5719 or 0909 040 8408 or send an email to marketing@plusttvafrica.com. Plus TV Africa. Big stories live here.
Thanks for joining us on Plus News Brief. I am Osaogie Ogbonwa. It's Nigeria's Independence Day anniversary, and President Muhammadu Buhari has kicked off activities with the traditional national broadcast. And Ebonyi State Governor David Umahi says the people of the state will no longer sit at home on October 1st as ordered by the indigenous people of Biafra. Umahi told reporters that the celebration was important to all citizens and Ebonyi in particular due to its creation on October 1st in 1996. Umahi, however, condemned the killing of Dr. Chike Akunyili in Anambra on Tuesday. The Department of State Services, DSS, has denied any involvement. equity. He made this call on the eve of Nigeria's Independence Day. Jacinta Obiuku has more.
The meeting by some members of the People's Democratic Party PDP, including members of Board of Trustees, convened by Olabode George, was to address some of the issues affecting the party. The former deputy national chairman, who disclosed his disinterest in party's chairmanship, believed the opposition party APC took advantage of PDP's weakness to thrive.
I am not afraid to tell anybody that the APC is a contraption. It is a political party of strange bedfellows, conceptualized because PDP, we were wobbling, we were manipulating ourselves. And so they saw an opportunity.
He then addressed newsmen on Nigeria's 61st independence, where issues of insecurity, unity, and equity took center stage. Olabode Joyce spoke on the need to embrace history to avoid repetition of past mistakes.
What are we celebrating? Independence? Independence for who? I want to appeal to number one. We were all in the military. It was oneness. Now that we were given an opportunity to now go back to the democratic, whatever we call it, why can't we exercise that same training to bring Nigerians together? Forget about your own tribe. Turn by turn, Nigeria Limited. If we don't do that, we are just postponing the day for evil. Justice, fairness, and equity are the tripod that sustain democracy.
Meanwhile, the National Zoning Committee has zoned the chairman's office to the north. Although it is yet to announce its decision on presidency, vice presidency, or other executive or legislative positions. Jacinta Obiuku for Plus TV Africa.
Still on Plus News Brief, earlier we reported that President Muhammadu Buhari, of course, made pronouncement on the steps the government is currently taking to improve on security situation in the country. And here is that report.
We are taking the fight to our enemies from all angles, and we are winning. Earlier this year, I launched the Integrated National Security and Waterways Protection Infrastructure, the Deep Blue Project, which is designed to secure Nigerian waters up to the Gulf of Guinea. I am happy to inform Nigerians that we have taken delivery of key assets for this project, and very soon its impact will be felt. In the northeast region alone, over 8,000 Boko Haram terrorists have surrendered. To support our surge approach to fighting banditry, the Nigerian Armed Forces have recruited over 17,000 personnel across all ranks. Furthermore, I have also approved for the Nigerian Police Force to recruit 10,000 police officers annually over the next 6 years.
And the House of Representatives has asked the Department of State Security, DSS, to delve into artificial intelligence as well as advanced technologies in combating insecurity in the country. During an oversight visit to the DSS, the Chairman, House Committee on National Security and Intelligence, Shaban Sharada, insisted that it was necessary to explore other strategies in combating insecurity. On his part, the Director General of the service said the budgetary allocations approved by the lawmakers has enabled research, facilitated movement of staff in operation, and acquisition of state-of-the-art equipment. The oversight function was part of efforts to appraise the 2020 budget implementation by the DSS.
As we continue to strive together in the task of nation building and in the provision of the security and welfare of the people, I encourage the Department of State Services to continue to explore the use of artificial intelligence and other advanced upscale technologies in intelligence gathering, surveillance, forensic investigations, and in general security management. I acknowledge with delight the effort of the DSS as preventing crimes across the country through the utilization of intelligence gathering, which is evident in the weekly report my office received on the security situation in the country. Their support has gone a long way in assisting the service to enhance its capabilities in order to meet the challenges the country is facing and then meet our core mandate, which is intelligence gathering, and then preventing security threats across the country.
And the House of Representatives has asked President Muhammadu Buhari to designate bandits as terrorists. The Senate had also made the same demand on Wednesday. At a plenary on Thursday, Chairman of House Committee on Defense, Baba Jimmy Benson, moved the motion of urgent public importance, urging the lower chamber to back the Senate. The motion was unanimously adopted through voice vote.
Such an order will officially bring the activities of bandits and their sponsors within the purview of the Terrorism Prevention Act, and any persons associated with such groups can then be legally prosecuted and sentenced to penalties specified in the Act. Declaration of all bandits as terrorists may also encourage other countries to do same and help create a global consensus around dealing with transnational factors that feeds the domestic activities of such prescribed organizations and individuals. As previously observed in this House, Mr. Speaker, no one action can be a silver bullet to solving our insecurity in Nigeria. But a collection of many effective actions and strategies can bring safety. It is in this spirit that I speak today, sir.
And also in the news, Zamfara state government says the ongoing military operations against bandits and kidnappers have been successful, as over 2,000 informants providing bandits with key information have been arrested in the state. According to the Commissioner for Information, Ibrahim Dosara, while addressing journalists in Kaduna, the state government has set up a military operation a month ago to take the fight to the bandits, noting that the bandits now eat raw okra and grass, as 80% of them have fled to Sokoto. He, however, disclosed that the state government may reconnect mobile telecommunication services before the end of the week. And a mass burial has been held for 38 victims slain in last Sunday's attack by unknown gunmen in Madami village in Kaura local government area of Kaduna State. Sympathizers gathered at the GSS Malagum in Kaura local government area to pay last respects to the victims. Many members of the family, friends and relatives were unable to keep their emotions in check as tears flowed freely. Women, children and the aged were seen mourning as they watched their loved ones being laid to rest. Also in the news, as part of their corporate social responsibility, men of the Nigerian Navy have arrested 2 armed traffic robbers at Navy Town or Jaw local government area of Lagos State and renovated a nursery and primary school in Lagos. PlusTvAfrica's correspondent Destiny Momo has more.
Suspects arrested at the Lakijura axis in Ojo local government area of Lagos. They specialize in robbing residents of their valuables using dangerous weapons and motorbikes. The Navy officials arrested them in collaboration with other security agencies as part of efforts to reduce crime and criminality to the barest minimum. Commodore Michael Ayabina, Commander, Nigerian Navy Shipway, throws more light.
We have men at Alakija and Kirikiri, armed men controlling traffic and also trying to ensure that they apprehend criminals around there. Apart from that, we also have vehicular patrols that patrols Kirikiri and Alakija. With those logistics on ground, we're going to continue to apprehend these criminals.
Meanwhile, the Nigerian Navy also officially commissioned the newly renovated Lagos State Modern Nursery and Primary School at Chakpo, Ajegunle, to the delight of the pupils teachers and school authority. Representative of the Flag Officer Commanding, Jason Basser, Commodore Basi Duke, speaks on this invaluable project.
The Nigerian Navy has done little way, topic-wise and in accordance with the Chief of the Naval Staff President Directive 2021-05, under the leadership of Vice Admiral Awad Zuberu Dambo, to carry out corporate social responsibility at the Lagos State Model Nursery and Primary School. Thus, the Nigerian Navy Authority has mandated its establishment and units to impact their immediate environment and communities.
We are gathered here to witness the unveiling of the above completed projects made possible by the Naval Command in order to provide a conducive learning environment for our pupils in their pursuit of academic excellence.
These events form part of activities that strengthen the Navy's civil-military relations with its host community. Destiny Momo for Plus TV Africa.
Contrabands worth over 64 million naira have been intercepted at waterways by the Adamawa and Taraba States Command of the Nigerian Customs Service. The seized items include foreign rice, honey, petroleum products, vehicles, fairly used clothes, and others. Displaying the seized items to newsmen in Yola, the Controller in charge of the command, said 3 suspects have been charged to court.
To take economic advantage of the country. And that is the essence of this PMS we are talking about. You know, by heavy subsidy that the government, federal government is subsidizing, it makes it cheaper here and a little costly there, or even more than multiply by 2 or 3 costly are there. So somebody wants to make gain to the disadvantage of their own national economy here. So they want to do everything possible to smuggle it out. So that is why we have been fighting tooth and nail that all this fuel and this thing. So we thank God.
The Abuja Division of the Court of Appeal has granted the application by Lagos State through its Attorney General, Moyoshere Onigbanjo, a senior advocate of Nigeria, to be made a respondent in the appeal filed by the Federal Inland Revenue Service on the controversial value-added tax. Lagos State is now the 3rd respondent in the appeal. The FIRS filed to set aside the judgment on a federal high court in Port Harcourt, which gave Rivers State the nod to collect value-added tax revenues within its territory. The appeal by the FIRS came against the August 9, 2021 judgment by Justice Stephen Palm of the Federal High Court in Port Harcourt, voiding the Value-Added Tax Act and holding that the state could collect VAT, delivering his Delivering his ruling, Justice Haruna Sanami held that the Lagos State had effectively shown that it has sufficient interest to protect by being made a party in the case. The court rejected the objections by the FIRS and the Attorney General of the Federation and proceeded to join the Attorney General of Lagos State as the 3rd respondent. You're still watching News Brief on Plus TV Africa, and the news continues after this short break.
we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
Now 500 naira they collect them. If you no talk, then go beat you. Now 2,500 and they pay.
Welcome once again to News Brief on Plus TV Africa. Now to stories in other parts of Africa. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres was shocked by the information that Ethiopia has declared 7 senior UN officials working in the country persona non grata. UN spokesperson Stephanie Tremblay told a press briefing today.
I'll start with a statement by the Secretary General on Ethiopia. I was shocked by the information that the government of Ethiopia has declared 7 UN officials, including senior UN humanitarian officials, as persona non grata. All UN humanitarian operations are guided by the core principles of humanity, impartiality, neutrality, and independence. In Ethiopia, the UN is delivering life-saving aid, including food, medicine, water, and sanitation supplies to people in desperate need. I have full confidence in the UN staff who are in Ethiopia doing this work. The UN is committed to helping Ethiopian people who rely on humanitarian assistance. We are now engaging with the government of Ethiopia in the expectation that the concerned UN staff will be allowed to continue their important work.
And now to stories outside Africa. The Chinese envoy on Thursday made a joint statement at the general debate of the Third Committee of the United Nations General Assembly on behalf of 30 countries, calling for the complete and immediate lifting of unilateral sanctions. Zhang Jun, China's permanent representative to the UN, made a statement on behalf of countries including China, Russia, Cuba, and Pakistan. This is the second call for an end to unilateral coercive measures which violate human rights and exacerbate the humanitarian disaster at the debate after the previous one in 2020. As the COVID-19 pandemic continues to severely affect all nations, in particular developing countries, Zhang called for global solidarity and international cooperation in the fight against COVID-19. He noted unilateral coercive measures are contrary to the purpose and principles of the UN Charter and international law, multilateralism, and the basic norms of international relations. And also, the Premier of Australia's biggest state economy, New South Wales, Gladys Berejiklian, resigned on Friday after a corruption watchdog said it was investigating whether she was involved in conduct that constituted or involved a breach of public trust. Berejiklian's shock resignation comes as the state, which has an economy larger than Singapore, Thailand, or Malaysia, battles the biggest COVID-19 outbreak in the country and is poised to begin ending months-long lockdowns as Australia sets to reopen international borders in November.
The people of this state need certainty as to who their leader is during the challenging times of the pandemic. I cannot predict how long it will take the ICAC to complete this investigation, let alone deliver a report in circumstances where I was first called to give evidence at a public hearing nearly 12 months ago. Therefore, it pains me to announce that I have no option but to resign from the office of Premier. My resignation will take effect as soon as the New South Wales Liberal Party can elect a new parliamentary leader. My resignation as Premier could not occur at a worse time, but the timing is completely outside of my control, as the ICAC has chosen to take this action during the most challenging weeks of the most challenging times in the state's history.
And now to business news. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has announced the postponement of the proposed launch of its digital currency, e-Naira. A statement by the Apex Bank's Director of Communications, Mr. Osita Nwansinobi, said the launch, which was earlier scheduled for October 1st, was postponed due to other activities lined up to commemorate the country's 61st independence anniversary. Nwansinobi said The CBN and other partners were working round the clock to ensure a seamless process that would be in the overall interest of customers, especially the unbanked population. He said that with the e-Naira, Nigerians would be able to carry out peer-to-peer transfer to another person's e-Naira wallet, as well as pay for goods and services at selected merchants. In sports now, second seed Casper Ruud edged past Andy Murray in 2 close sets to make the quarterfinals of the new ATP Tour event in San Diego. Murray was a break of serve up in the opening set, only to lose 8-7-5. And the 3-time Grand Slam champion broke the world #1 when he served for the match at 5-4 in the second set, only to drop his own serve straight away to end the contest. Ruud will face Lorenzo Sonego in the quarterfinals. And that's the news brief. For more stories, please follow us at PlusTvAfrica on Facebook and Instagram. And do subscribe to our YouTube channel at PlusTvAfrica and PlusTvAfrica Lifestyle. I am Osao Ogbonwa. Thanks for watching.
At the time of independence in 1960, Nigeria was a federal state of 3 regions: northern, western, and eastern. Additionally, provinces, which were a legacy of colonial and protectorate times, remained extant until they were abolished in 1976. During that period, the British annexed Lagos Island as a colony in 1861. Lagos maintained its status as capital when Nigeria obtained its independence from Britain in 1960 and was therefore the capital city of Nigeria from 1914 until 1991, when it was replaced as the Federal Capital Territory by planned city of Abuja. Since its creation on 27 May 1967, here is a highlight of some of the governors who have made Lagos State what it is today. Lateef Kayode Jakonde, born 23 July 1929, was a journalist who became first civilian governor from 1979 to 1983. He ran for election as governor of Lagos State on the Unity Party of Nigeria platform. He defeated his opponents Adeniro Ogunsoya of MPP and Sultan Ladega Adeniji Adeli of the National Party of Nigeria. His administration was effective and open, but also faced criticism. Jakonde introduced housing and educational programs targeted at the poor, built new neighborhood primary and secondary schools, and provided free primary and secondary education. He established the Lagos State University. Jakonde's government constructed over 30,000 housing units. He died at the age of 91 on February 11, 2021. Mohammed Buba Marwa, born on September 9, 1953, was a retired Nigerian Army officer who served as governor of Borno State and then Lagos State during the military administrations of a joint police and military venture that helped reduce Lagos' notorious crime rate. In May 1998, Marwa imposed fuel rationing in the state in an attempt to tackle petrol shortages and reduce chronic queuing at the stations. He is currently the chairman and chief executive officer of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. As the governor of Lagos State, where he assumed office in May 1999, Bola Ahmed Tinubu promised 10,000 housing units for the poor.